Hey, hi everybody. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. How's everybody doing today? Where's everybody from? Let me know in those comments before we get started here. To everybody watching this after the fact, hello as well. You can't comment live, but thanks for watching. Who knows what song that was? I gave it away at the end there, but I wasn't. I didn't have the keys playing, so it was a chordless trio from iReal Pro: bass, drums, and me. Hello from San Diego, Indiana. Hello, Texas, Lansing, Michigan, the Netherlands. Hi, everybody. People ask why I always use this Rocco's Modern Life mug. And I have a ton of mugs, like way too many, but it's because it's really wide and it's harder to spill. Although I have spilled it before and spilled coffee all over, so I use it because the bottom is wider. Just friends, that's right, yeah, just friends. So I was just trying to start, which is just blowing over the chorus to lead into this whole masterclass about 2-5-1s and about how with strong, clear voice leading, you can, outline changes and play tunes without needing to hear the chords there. From Vegas, California, San Antonio, Wyoming, USA, Philippines, hello. Hello from Poland. We got multiple countries here. I love that. Poland and the Philippines and the Netherlands. That's awesome. From LA, from France, Dover, New Hampshire. Cool. Hi, everybody. So that's the people that are live here, and I love to see how many of you are from around here or from all over the place. So once again, to those who are watching after the fact, I'm probably going to put timestamps down below so you don't have to worry about me asking everybody where they're from right now. So this is a masterclass. By the way, thank you all for joining me on this, I call it a masterclass, but it's, I guess that's what it is really, because it's a one-way kind of deal. But hopefully it's going to be a class that helps you maybe understand 2/5s better, maybe understand different approaches to them, or maybe you're just here to hang out and hear what my thoughts are. Maybe you'll learn a little something. And I found that no matter how far along you are, you can always learn. I'm always learning from other people as well. So it's not like you stop. Once you know how to play a couple licks, it's not like you stop. So, it's really cool for you guys to be here. So thank you so much. And those watching afterwards, I hope you get a lot out of this as well. Even though you're not live, you can follow along. And everybody that's following along live right now, you can also watch this afterwards. You watch it after and follow along using the worksheet that I'm going to be going over during this. But you can take your own time, and you can always send me an email with questions. info@davepollack.com will be the easiest way. So those in the chat live right now, check out the pinned comment. Not underneath, but in the live chat, or in the description. So you want to have, I'm going to be going over the worksheet, but you want to make sure you have this worksheet. So if you're already on my email list, yesterday I emailed it to you directly. If you're not yet, all you got to do is click on that link. It's davepollack.com/251. And it'll take you to a thing. All you do is put your email address in, go to your inbox, confirm it, bam, you can follow along. And also then you can get the free masterclass I did on melodic soloing as well. But today it's going to be the worksheet on 2/5-1s. Hey, everybody. So, in this, it's going to be like a live masterclass where I'm going to be, giving things out one way, but also I'm going to be asking some questions and having you ask your questions as well. So this isn't an open Q&A. Don't just start randomly asking questions about stickers and whatnot. But I want to, ask some questions and have you all ask me things, because I'd like to gear it towards what you have. I've asked a lot of people recently, and I'm building up towards something that you'll find out about a little later this year. But I've been asking people what their issues are with improvisation or their struggles, and where they think improvisation for them is lacking or could be better. And we all have things that we could be better at, right? But a lot of people mention getting through chord changes, making coherent solos, being able to play things that are unique and fresh, or just getting through chords. And so I'm going to be doing a series of these videos, hopefully helping you out and really guiding you on that way, because I've been teaching for a long time, and I've taught a lot of different students improvisation. So I hope that I know it'll help you as well. I do love stickers. Hey, Emily, miss you. Yeah, the stickers are there. We got a smiley face on the back. You gotta be happy, right? Be happy for that. So I got lots of different stuff here. Shout out Chris Williams. Shout out Jasmine. Shout out Adam Fanasteel. Shout out Key Leaves, one of my sponsors. Shout out Don Palumbi. Did I say Chris Williams? Chris Gorino. Chris G. More Key Leaves. Boston Sax Shop, of course. Boston Sax Shop. Shout out Scott Grimaldi. Shout out Orlando Youth Chamber Ensemble. All right. So if you have your the 251 worksheet, and by the way, I'm going to be playing and stuff. It's not just going to be boring like me just lecturing you. But if you do have the 251 worksheet, you can get it out, or I'm going to be showing you right here. So this is the worksheet. So we should be good there. Okay. So I'm going to be bouncing in and out of it, going over some things and talking about things. So first off, before we even get started with it, understand that this, first of all, is my approach to certain things. Like when I start specifically talking about how to create certain sounds, I have my own way to do it, and I'll explain when we get there why I do what I do. I like to always explain, because I'm not the kind of teacher that just says, do it because I said so. I wouldn't learn well that way, and I've seen people not learn well that way as well. It's important to know, I think it's important to know why you're doing things. So for me, that's super important. So this is, first of all, my approach to it, but also this isn't everything. Okay, I can't cover everything in 251s, and I can't dive deep because we'd be here for days and days. So I'm going to give you kind of an overview, but also the important parts that I think. So let's just dive right into this. So I'm only going to be talking about major 2/5s in this one. Minor 2/5s are a separate thing. I might touch on them a little later, especially if you have questions about a minor 2/5-1. Like, and by the way, when I say minor 2/5-1, instead of, if you're looking here on the sheet, instead of D minor 7 to G7, it would be D minor 7 flat 5, also called D half diminished 7. So that A would be A flat, and G7 flat 9 specifically, and it would lead to C minor usually. Once again, we'll talk about the alternates, because there are alternates to all of these and other options, okay? So I'm only going to be talking about major 2/5s today. If you have specific questions about minors later, we can get to them, but just major 2/5s. So I'm going to use the terms long and short 2/5-1. I like to use those. To me, a long 2/5-1 in 4/4 is a measure of the 2 chord, measure of the 5 chord, measure of the 1 chord. So 4 beats, and then a resolution. So the resolution, by the way, in this is almost arbitrary, but we're just going to use the 1 as the resolution. It could be any length you want. It could also be any chord, but we'll focus on the 1 for now. A short 2/5-1, which I get to a little later. Where is that? Oh, here you go. Short 2/5-1 right here is 2 beats, and then the resolution. Okay? And it's important to have a distinction between them, and it's important to talk about how you approach each of them, because I approach them differently, and I'm going to show you how to actually condense your practicing down to only worry about one of them, but you can still play over both. Once again, I'm all about efficiency. Black coffee, the only way to drink it. So, long 2/5-1. So let's just start talking about that. So a 2/5-1 in C major. Everything I wrote on this specific worksheet's all in C major, just to make it easier. I'm going to do it in concert C. So everything I talk about is going to be in C. Everything applies in 12 keys. So whether I talk about, if I say the third is F, that's only for this. You have to obviously transpose to your own key or to a different key if you want. Okay, so here we go. So D minor 7 to G7 to C major. Why is it a 2/5-1? First of all, what is this? So when you think about C major, this is why major keys are so important. I wrote a whole PDF book on major keys called Strictly Major, because I think playing in a major key center is so important. So right out of the gate, you got to know major keys. So when I say C major, concert C major, That's our key, a key center, right? We talk about a key, we talk about all these things, and this is where it gets, some people even right off the bat, oh, the voice is cutting in and out? Uh-oh. That's not good. Wait a minute. Let me check. Is it cutting out? Is it because I'm just moving away from the mic like that? That might be why. I apologize. If that's why, I'm sorry. I'll stay closer. Okay, we got to get into this. So C major, in the key of C major, we have no sharps and no flats, all right? No sharps, no flats, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 2-5-1 literally means build a seventh chord, which whenever you have a seventh chord, you have 4 chord tones with a skip in between, based on the 2, based on the 5, and then based on the 1. So if you look right here, based on the 2, you would take the second note of the key. In this case, the key is C, so you would take D. Then you would skip in the key. This is the big thing. When you start a D minor chord on the key of, in the key, or a seventh chord in the key of C, don't think of the key of the root. Don't think D major. We're basing everything off of C major. So you would take the second scale degree, the 4th, the 6th, and the 8th, which will give you D, F, A, C. That is the 2 chord in the key of any major key, is 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, if you start on the note D here, gives you D, F, A, C, which is 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7 in the key of D major. So if you alter it from D major, you get flat 3, flat 7. If you're thinking of it as a mode, just like scales can be modes like Dorian or whatever, second mode of the chord of C major, you get D, F, A, C, which is a minor 7. A regular 2-5-1 in major is always going to be minor 7, dominant 7, major 7, okay? So when I say 2, I mean the 2 chord. The chord starting on the 2 second scale degree. That's literally what it means. There's nothing else that it means. The 5 chord, and by the way, you'll usually see these as Roman numerals. So 2 will be like 2I, like lowercase I. A 5 will be a V, and then 1 will be a capital I. 5 is literally a 7th chord, so 4 notes with a skip in between, diatonically in the key of C, but starting on the 5th, which is G. So you get G, B, D, F, which gives you a dominant 7th chord, G7 we call it, and then the 1 is 1, 3, 5, 7. We have C major. So that's the building of a 2-5-1. Why is a 2-5-1 important? Why does everybody talk about 2-5-1s? Why do I see books on 2-5-1s and licks on 2-5-1s, and why is it important? 2-5-1 is a cadence. Cadence means a set of chords that resolve somewhere. In all music, not even jazz music, but all music, if you have these turnarounds or these cadences, they do one of two things. They either get you to a new key, or they get you back to the original key or the main key. That's it. They don't do anything else, right? They're just a set of chord changes. The reason why they're so important is that they appear, first of all, they appear so often. They appear in, back to here. They appear in almost every jazz song you'll ever come across. Almost, I say. Obviously, somebody's going to go, what about So What? Impressions. Yeah, obviously, some songs don't. So many songs have 2-5-1s, so they're a very important tool because you know you're going to come across them often. Repetition breeds familiarity, and then if you're familiar with a set of chords like a 2-5-1, when you see it in a song, you don't have to then analyze those new chords. You can just say, oh, it's a 2-5-1 in F. Bam, I already know how to play it. Okay? So that's why it's really important. And also because in a song, when you're highlighting a new key or you're highlighting the key you're going back to, that's a very important turnaround in the song. So you need to really make sure that part of the song is done really well. Yes, if you have floating chord changes that are kind of diatonic or chromatic, you got to hit those. That's really important. But if you have a turnaround back to the 1, usually it's at the end of a chorus or the end of a section, or you're getting into a new section, like a lot of times on the bridge of a song, you'll go up to the 4. It's really, those are important parts of the song. So that's why it's really important to know them, because you're going to come across them a lot and they're just important. Okay, so how do we get through them? So right out of the gate, I'm going to say, you need to know the chord tones. So a lot of people talk about highlighting chord tones, and hopefully all of you here, if you know or you're starting your 2-5 journey or improvisation journey, any song you should be able to understand what the chord tones are for each chord. Okay, so if you see, once again, here, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, you need to know what the literal notes are. That's not as important as what it means. Okay, I know that's a little vague, but what it means is when I see this, if I see D minor 7, G7, C major, I'm not thinking, okay, 1 flat third, flat 7, D, F, A, C. Then I'm going to play G7, G, B, D, F. That's the nitty gritty, right? Just like if I said shoot a basketball, you're going to think, okay, so I'm going to put my hand here. My fingers are going to be here. All right, I'm going to arc the basketball at 47 degrees. Yes, those things happen, and they are maybe in there in practice. But in the middle of a game, Steph Curry is not thinking about those nitty-gritty things. Just like if right now I asked you all to raise your right hand, most of you, or hopefully all of you or most of you, don't have to think about which arm it is. You just do it. You don't think about, okay, left, right. Okay, to raise my arm, oh no, wait a minute. I need to raise my hand, so I bend at the elbow, then push this way. Right? Those things happen. There are processes that happen at the nitty-gritty level. For me, when I teach this, thinking about what the chord tones are, that's thinking about which angle to lift your arm. Yes, you need to know that at some level, but it should be subconscious. So for you, when you're learning a new tune or learning 2/5s or whatever, get so good at just knowing what the chord tones are of the literal chords that you don't even have to think about them. I should be able to say D minor 7, you go D, F, A, C. Or even more importantly, you should be able to play it on your instrument. You should be able to play it on your instrument instantly. Ba-da-da-da, right? Any chord that you say, minor 7, dominant 7, major 7, those are the 3 main chords. All right? So how do we play through them? Now, there's this thing, and I call it playing vertically. And this is where people play up a 2 chord. Right? Now, you might not be able to, might not think that's terrible or whatever, and that's fine. If that's where you're at, that's cool. But I think it's important instantly to not do that. In the beginning of your playing, if you're the person that's watching this right now and you're thinking, I want to start 2/5-1s, don't start by doing that. You should start knowing that it's but more importantly to you is what you see right here in the PDF measure 4, which is what I call the 3-7-3 and the 7-3-7 guide tone lines. Okay? 7-3-7, 3-7-3 guide tone lines in any order you want. They are literally what they say they are. Okay? What they say they are is you play the third of the 2 chord, which is in this case F. Then you play the 7th of the 5 chord, which is also F, and then you go down a half step. You get the third of the 7th chord, which is E. So you get F, F, E. Now, why is this important? First of all, thirds and 7ths are always very important. In 2/5-1s, because the chords move by 4th, D up to G is a 4th, G up to C is a 4th, the thirds and 7ths are always going to be either right next to each other or they're going to be sharing notes. So always know that. Thirds and 7ths, especially in 2/5-1s, are super, super, super critical. And then if you look here on the 7-3-7, the 7 is C. Then you go down a half step to the third, which is B, and then stay there, common tone, B as well. So here's what this would sound like in the key of C major. I'm going to play it as a long 2/5 just as it's written. Okay? I'm going to play the 3-7-3, then the 7-3-7. Beautiful. Okay, so why is that important? Well, think about it. Let's think. Being able to play vertically through the chords. And by the way, for me, when I say vertical, I'm talking about playing over the 2 chord, up and down, or whatever, then disregarding it, thinking about the 5 chord, then playing the 1 chord. So for me, this would be not the way I would play it if I were you. This is, once again, a 2-5-1 in C major. Right? Now, you can save it with good, not voice leading because that's what we're about to do. But you can save it with strong, rhythms, motifs, intervals, good tone quality, obviously, all those things. But to me, I want to play more horizontally through the chords. What I mean by horizontally is using voice leading as your guide to lead you through the chords, okay? I did that masterclass that you can find, once again, on my website called How to Play Melodic Solos, or the best way to play melodic solos. And in that, and we're going to go through that 6-step process here in a second with 2-5-1s, but basically I'm talking about how to go horizontally left to right through the chords without worrying about going up and down. Yes, you need to know the chords. Yes, the key center is C major. So we're all diatonic for now. I'm not going to play anything non-diatonic. So if I was to create, let's just create a little solo bouncing off those guide tone lines, 3-7-3 and 7-3-7, it would sound something like this. Three, 7-3 again. Here's 7-3-7. Seven, 3-7. To me, that sounds better. To you, it might not. But when I listen to people play, if I'm, critiquing them in some way, I'm thinking about the motion between the chords. I'm always thinking about how are we moving between the chords? And, how are we creating melody in real time, which is what improvisation is? How are we doing that in a coherent way that makes the chords sound like they mean to be there, right? Because by playing vertically and by kind of chunking each chord and treating it as its own phrase, the phrasing is clumsy. So even if the chords make sense, even if you have a 2-5-1, which obviously makes sense, the chords are going to sound clunky. It's going to almost sound like the chords aren't meant to be like that, and it's just going to make everything sound really not connected. And that's the biggest thing to me is connection. Creating a coherent melody. I always say melody. Improvisation is composing in real time. That's what it is, right? And composing is improvising with a pause button. If you think about that, it makes perfect sense. When you're composing, you're writing something new. You're improvising. You're creating something new. It's just not in real time. Improvising, you have to be in real time, so you have to create these melodies, all right? So looking back at the worksheet, how do we create lines? Okay, yeah, we have 3-7-3, 7-3-7, but that's like, okay, I don't know. It still doesn't sound right. I'm still just jumping around. Okay, let's think of something here. What if we hit the third of every chord? Let's just start there. The third of every single chord is really important because, well, the third third's probably the most important of any chord, most important chord tone of any chord. It gives you most of the color, it gives you the sound, it gives you if it's major or minor. You can't give everything with it, like you don't know if it's dominant, major, whatever, but thirds are going to be, I would say, the most important if the chord has a third. So let's look right here. Survival line. What we're going to do is we're going to start on the third of the D minor, which is F. Scale down, we hit the third of the 5 chord, and then scale down, we hit the third of here. Notice that we're just scaling down diatonically in the key of the 1. In this case, the key of the 1 is C major. So you're literally just going to play. I played that down an octave from where it's written, but you get the point. Here's what that sounds like over top of the chords. Okay, I'm going to put the chords back in for this now, the actual chords. I've just been having bass and drums, but let's see what it sounds like now. Check this out. Okay, how is this? What does this mean? What can we do with this? Well, a lot of people like to think in a linear fashion, myself included. So when I think of lines, I'm thinking of scale type things. I'm not thinking scales, hard stop. I'm thinking of scale looking things, so linear, stepwise type things. All right. So, by the way, put in the chat right now, how many of you, just right off the rip, how many of you do you rather think of chords and phrases in a more linear fashion? Like when you see a 2-5-1, are you thinking lines, or do you think more individual chord tones? Like if you see a 2-5-1, are you thinking chord tones, or are you thinking more of melody lines? So let me know in the comments. I'd like to see who thinks which way. It'd be interesting to me. So that'll be kind of cool to see how you guys are thinking. So for me, I'm always thinking of those lines because I'm thinking of melody and how can I smoothly get between these chords. Now, I play with lots of different, intervals and everything. So I'm not just going to play linearly, but I like to think linearly. How can I convert this survival line into something cool? Well, how about this? What if I think about this? Hitting this note here, the third here at the D minor, the third over the G7, and the third over the 1 chord, I'm going to change other elements of music. And here's where really the practice comes in. Melody is king. Yeah, melody is king. I think lines that hit the chord tones. Okay, yeah. So, and by the way, there's no right answer because there's some people that are all chord tone based that sound amazing, and there's some people that are all linear based that sound amazing. So it's not like there's a right answer. I'm just curious as to where we're thinking. Cool. So thinking chord tones to me is good, but once again, I think for a lot of people, if you start to experiment with more line based and more overall phrasing based, I think it'll do you some good. One of the reasons why I'm doing a whole masterclass here on 2-5-1s is that I want that to become a singular thing to you. In your mind, a 2-5-1 should not be 3 separate chords. It should be, oh, that's a 2-5-1 in C major. Third is Savior in jazz. Yeah. So building lines, there is a process. It's not as easy as just transcribing and memorizing lines. It's not as easy and cut and dry as I give you a line. It's not as cut and dry as, I don't know, steal them from a worksheet or something, whatever. But it's about understanding what sounds a certain way, and then do you want to use that sound? For example, I always use analogies like cooking, because cooking analogies are pretty universal. If I want something to taste like barbecue, like the barbecue type of taste, flavor, I need to know what in the pantry can give me that taste or that flavor, like barbecue sauce, or if I'm doing like a smoky barbecue, like on a pellet grill or something. But I need to have that prior knowledge of what it is. I can't just like randomly pick out things. I can't go, oh, there's some sriracha. Is that going to give me barbecue? Oh, black pepper. Is that going to do? You have to kind of prior knowledge. So if I want a sound that's, a nice diatonic, linear sound that hits and sounds like a nice, bright, happy sound, I need to know what's going to give me that sound. If I want a bluesy sound, I need to know. So when you're building lines, it's not about just taking a line that sounds cool and implementing it. It's about finding out what sound you're going for, because in real time, that's what I want you to think about. When I'm interacting with the drummer, which is my main goal in improvisation, harmonically, what I'm thinking about is instantly what sound would work next. Oh, I want a really outside sound. Bam. Instantly, I need to go in my toolbox. What gives me that outside sound? Or go into my cupboard. What gives me that outside sound? Boom. Sprinkle that on. Bam. Outside. But you have to have that prior knowledge. Just like when I say raise your right hand, you need to the prior knowledge is working on which hand is right. You can't just imitate people without knowing that this is right, this is left. Okay, that's called parroting, and that's what a lot of people end up doing. They transcribe, but they don't know what to do with the transcription. They read the Omnibook, or they get someone's PDF, but they don't know, 25 great 2-5-1 lines in 12 keys. Awesome, but if you don't know how they work, what sound it's giving off, and then how to then take that sound and build it into your own playing, which we're going to get to later we are going to get into sounds, by the way. We're getting into outside stuff, colors, diminished stuff, extensions, we will. But I really want to harp on this diatonic stuff, okay? So, that's what's going on there. So here we go. Back to the survival line. And we are going to pick up the pace here in a second. How do I make the survival line sound cooler? Well, let's just hit the thirds again. So F, B, and E. But this time, I'm going to add some different rhythms, and I'm going to try to change the line in some way. So here's what that would sound like. Diatonic. So I got there. Eventually, right? And when I mean I got there, I mean I got to the third each time. I may have delayed it, but a little bit. When doing that right there, all I did was think F, B, E, right? And harmonically, I thought C major, flat. If you C major, when I say flat, I just mean like that's it. Sorry. Latency with the backing track. Yeah, sorry about that. You hopefully you still get the point. Hopefully it's not too bad. The other problem is I lay back too far as well. I need to to make it work a little bit, I need to actually play on the front end of the beat. Help, how do I make 2/5 lines that are 12-tone rows? That's very simple. Play all 12 notes, play chromaticism. But you can still hit chord tones, which we're going to talk about in a little bit later, about how to use chromaticism or outside notes to create these sounds. Because playing a 2/5-1 is not only about just playing in the key of the one, or just playing the chord tones, but it's about creating a certain feeling. And when we start talking about it, and probably the main reason why a lot of you came here is, how do you make cool sounding things over the dominant chord? How do I add color and alterations over that dominant chord to give me that consonant tension resolution? We're going to get there, I promise. So if you're like, oh my God, stop talking about the C major scale. I know. But this is important. This is, to do another analogy, this is cooking the chicken properly. Okay, no matter how great the sauce is, or the seasoning, or any sides on top of your chicken, if you don't cook the chicken all the way through or cook it properly, it's not going to be good. If you undercook chicken, people are going to get sick. I don't care how great your sauce is or your seasoning. You have to make sure the chicken is cooked properly. This stuff I'm talking about right now, survival line, guide tone lines, diatonically getting through the chords and not playing vertically, that's cooking the chicken. We're going to get to the sauce, don't worry. How do I play outside if the weather is bad? You just play out. What do you mean? You just go outside. Don't be a wimp. I played out in a snowstorm. I have videos playing in a snowstorm. I played during a tropical storm down the shore. It's fine. Your horn will be fine. It's just a piece of metal. So now let's go back over here to the worksheet. Let's now do the 6-step process. So I have a 6-step process that I like to do for melodic improvisation. It's all about building guide tone lines from different directions that help you lead into the next chord tone. Okay? The idea of going through this process is not only that you'll have different avenues and different maybe guide tone lines that you can use, because you're not going to use every single one, but literally just going through the process is going to train you to hear the guide tone line. One thing I always do with students is I ask them, when we're playing through chords, I say, can you maybe hum me a line or just play me a couple notes that work without even thinking about it? You shouldn't be thinking about the root. Everybody always tries to go for, what is the root? What is the root? What is the root? Hear the guide tone line. This will help you with that. So right now, honestly, Frederick says, honestly, you could spend a lifetime playing diatonically and never get tired if you do it right. It's my opinion. Yeah, I mean, there's so many options. People think and this is also where I get into, this is why just thinking of chord tones or thinking scale equals chord or chord equals scale drives me nuts. Because if you teach that, oh, you see D minor, think D Dorian, you're already locking yourself into starting on D, only playing linear, and you're not playing, all these other options that are out there. They exist. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go through this process. So basically, we're hitting the third of the 2 chord, hitting the third of the 5 chord, hitting the third again. Third is king. You could do this with the 5. You can do this with the 7. Third's going to be the most stable. Okay, 3rd and 5 are going to be the most stable, not 7. Resolving to the 7 is going to be not as stable. It'll be good. In major, it's fine. But in if you're landing on a dominant, like in a blues or something, or a minor, 7's not super stable. It always wants to go somewhere else. So beware of that, but you can do it. That's fine. I just use the 3rd for this example because it's great. So basically, I'm going to approach the notes 6 different ways. The first way, LN, right here, stands for lower neighbor. Basically, on beat 4, I'm going to play a note that's 1 step below the 3rd of this chord, diatonically in C major. So this chord is B. What's the next note below B? The closest note is B flat. B flat is not diatonic. Now, you might say, well, I can use chromatic leading tones. Yes, that's a different thing. We're staying diatonic for now. So we have lower neighbor into each one. Then we have an upper neighbor, same process. Then let's go over here. Number 3, we have 2 lower neighbors. So now we're going to make more of a line, 2 eighth notes. So you take the 2 notes diatonic that lead into here. 2 lower neighbor. Number 4, we're going to do 2 upper neighbors. Then number 5 is what we call an enclosure. That's a big term in the last few years. People love enclosures, man. I love playing enclosures. That's always been there. It's always a term, but it's just become more popular. Lower than upper, and then upper than lower. The cool thing about this process, if you did, let's go back here for a second. If you did the lower neighbor and the upper neighbor, your enclosure, lower, upper, is literally this. It's literally, look, A, C, lower to B, upper to B. And then if you look over here, look, A, C, then B. So the enclosures are built in, but by going through the process one step at a time, it works really well. So I'm going to play a little bit of this for you. Here we go. So I'm going to play each one with a break in between, starting from number 1, going through number 6. You can follow along here, or if you already downloaded the PDF, you can watch it there. Here we go. Lower neighbor. Upper neighbor. Okay, let me do the next one now. Number 3, here we go. 2 lower neighbors. 2 upper. Now the enclosure, lower, upper. Upper, lower. And that's every way you can approach a note diatonically using no more than 2 notes. Now, somebody's going to say, well, can't you do 2 lower, then 2 upper? Or da-da-da-da. Yeah, there's combinations for every single one. But I'm just sticking to these right now. Don't jump ahead. Go Phillies. I'm actually seeing Miami tomorrow. Hey, go Phils. I love this. Diatonic is important. Yeah. So once again, I'm only teaching from my experiences. I'm only teaching from my my point of view and my approach. I'm very, very big on if you learn the basics really well, if you have simple but core concepts really well done, those translate over in real time, in real life, in real improvisation, in real recording, real gigs, whatever, better than if you just try to memorize a whole bunch of licks. I see it all the time at like high school jazz festivals and stuff where some kid will get up there, the band will be smoking, they're playing great stuff. The kid gets up there and they're like just farting around, like not playing in time. There's no pocket, whatever. Then all of a sudden, they play some Bird Lake or some Coltrane thing, and everybody's like, whoa. And then they go back to just kind of not playing in time. And it's so obvious. And I always tell my students, I'd rather have you just play a bad solo all the way through that's yours, that has good core concepts, rather than just randomly throwing in these complicated licks, in the middle of nowhere. Because then it sticks out even more because you're not learning how to actually use it. And you're not learning how to incorporate it into your actual playing. You're just being a parrot. It'd be like if you didn't know anything in a language, but you memorized some really complex sentence and just would use that everywhere. But if somebody says, hi, how are you? You couldn't respond. So to me, it's all about the basics. And when I talk about being able to translate, if you talk about, forget even improvisation, like chords, if you have good time, right? If you're whether you're whatever instrument you are, if you have really good time and a good tone quality to your instrument and you could fit in the pocket. I did a whole other masterclass on this, a live one called Taking the Fear Out of Improvisation. The whole thing was basically fit the vibe. I could have summed it up in a 2-second sentence. Fit the vibe. If you can play in time in the pocket with good feel, good sound, and good musical elements that fit the style, it doesn't matter really what note you're playing. Now, this one obviously is about notes and stuff, but I'm just taking a back seat for a second, or taking a tangent. Think about those elements first. Those translate over. So these simple elements, getting back to the 2-5-1 here in this sheet, these simple elements of being able to play the third, leading tone in, it might seem, like, wow, that's so like boring. That's such like a easy thing. This is like a beginner basic thing. This is the core of all improvisation. Anybody that you've heard that sounds great with improvisation in a harmonic sense, like obviously if they're, playing John Zorn and biting the reed and stuff, that's a different vibe. But like even if you listen to, like, go listen to Chris Potter play All the Things You Are. Go listen to Chris Potter play All the Things You Are, that 13-minute one at the Masterclass. That's a cappella. A couple people transcribed it. I think Charles McNeil did. Did Steve Neff do it too? I don't know. A bunch of people have transcribed it. But if you look at it, he doesn't even need a rhythm section at all. You hear the chords because he has great voice leading. Now, he's not playing it obviously as simple as this, but this is in there. All this stuff is in there, and this is what I'm talking about. If you master the basics of voice leading through a tune, and this, by the way, I know this is about 2-5-1s, but if you take this process through any song and any chords, people always ask about, what if I use weird chords? Once again, back to that other masterclass, the best way to play melodic solos. I literally, on Instagram, like weeks beforehand, I was like, name your favorite chord. Nobody knew why. They were just giving me random chords. And I took those random chords and I just threw them in. And I did this whole process, this voice leading process through the random chords. It makes those sound, smooth. It makes them sound like they connect, even though they literally were completely random chords chosen by different people. People who think this is primitive probably can't even play it. Well, maybe. But you know what I mean, though? It's like, here's the thing. If you're a person who's on the beginning stages of improvisation, or you're in that stage where you're like, I listen to jazz, but it doesn't translate to my instrument. I know some lines, especially I teach a bunch of like high school age kids like that, and I've taught a bunch of kids like that in the past. If that's you right now, take the time to do voice leading. And by the way, there's a lot of other stuff in this masterclass. We're only a little bit in. We're not even halfway in. If you take this stuff, this voice leading idea, and you take this 6-step process. So it's 6-step process, but you can do it for any chord tone. Just say you want to do it through the 3rd and the 5th. Those are the most stable. That's 12 different voice leading lines or avenues of voice leading diatonically through 12 different ways through every single set of 2 chords, chord to chord to chord. Do that through a tune. Take it through a blues. Take it through Solar is a great tune to do it over because it's all based on 2-5-1s. And I'm going to play that in a little bit. But just take it through there and then see what avenues you can come up with, because here's now the next step. How do we take that into actually building it? Example lines. And when I play these, some of you might recognize them from something. By the way, I forgot to put the number here, but basically it's number 3, 4, 5, and 6. The reason why I didn't do 1 and 2 is because that's only the quarter note 1 step. I wanted to do the 8th notes, so the 2 steps. So this, we have our 2 lower again. What am I doing? I'm taking my landing tone. So look right here. So example lines, diatonic used in steps 3 through 6, 2 neighbor tones. So I'm landing on the 3rd of the 2 chord, 3rd of the 5 chord, 3rd of the 1 chord for all of these, just like up here. And on beat 4, I'm doing my 2 lower neighbors. So if you look, 2 lower neighbor, G and A. Now it's just down an octave, but G and A. Once again, I'm playing these all as concert key, so they apply to any instrument. What I'm doing is I have my outline, okay? The more parameters you put on yourself, the more rules you put on when practicing, the more creative you then have to become. But it also, the parameters give you a guide. The tough thing about improvisation, I always say this to my students, the tough thing is, when do you know you're done? I'll wait. When do you know you're done with improvisation? How do you know I've done it? I am now an improviser. I'm done. I've learned improvisation. The answer is there is no finish line, which is frustrating for a lot of people because there's no end goal. There's just all this stuff out there. How do we build it in, or how do we bring ourselves to what to practice? Start here. I promise this will be great for you. So put the parameters on. The 3rd of each one. Let's do 2 lower neighbor. Here's what it sounds like. I'm going to play the lines that are on the sheet right now. So I'm going to play right here, starting on measure 31, 2 lower neighbor. Here's what that would sound like. I'm going to slow it down so you guys can actually hear it a little better. Let's put it at our favorite tempo, 120. Here it is. I'll play it again, 2 lower neighbors, see if you can hear it. Right? So even from there, if you wanted to create your own, but just have your 2 lower neighbors, You can create something maybe like this with some different rhythms. Late resolution. Right? So even though I didn't hit him exactly there with that fast stuff, I was still kind of thinking of them, and that's, I think, the biggest benefit you get of doing this process is you think voice leading through chords versus thinking of just chord tones. All of you who answered chord tones when I asked you how do you think of the lines, hopefully when you solo through a 2-5-1, you're not just saying, I'm going to hit chord tones and then hit chord tones and then hit chord tones. Yes, that'll work, but how are you connecting those chord tones? Because just hitting the third of each one isn't going to work as well. It's not going to be... That might create a nice melody if you go... But you have to do that connection. Just playing the chord tones alone will not get you there. Knowing what they are, then thinking of how to connect them will. Two-step process, really. Okay, so let's go back to here. Let's hear the next line. So this is going to be two upper neighbors. I'm just going to play all the rest of them for you. Here we go. Two upper. Lower upper now. So that right there shows something. That one right there, if you notice, all the other ones I barely put any skips in. Oh, in the first one I did, but in the second one a little bit. But this one, because I knew the parameter was lower upper enclosure, I knew I was going to play da da da. Da-dee-da. I knew I was going to play that. I highlighted that fact by adding some, like a scale in thirds almost. Look what I did. So I also did it so it didn't stick out as much. Now, you might want it to stick out. You might want it to be linear. I don't know. You might want to be linear, then have it pop out. But that's your choice. The point is, if you know in your mind, you have that in your back pocket, you can do that enclosure ahead of time, lower upper or upper lower, like I'm going to show you. You know what it sounds like and the feel it gives, so you'll be able to approach it in any way. Do you want to have lots of skips? Something like that, and it gives that more modern sound, which I'll show you in a second. Or do you want it more linear? The choice is yours, but you have to have practiced each of them to know what it sounds like. So that way in real time, you're not thinking, what lick should I play? Instead, you're thinking, what sound or feeling should I evoke? When I use the term sound, I'm not talking about tone quad. I'm talking about what sound, the diminished sound, the sharp 11 sound, the linear sound, the skip sound. Think about that, and then in real time, you can dig into your bag of tricks and say, oh, I want the linear sound. I want the chromatic sound. I want the outside sound. I want the tritone sub sound. And then within that category, you have subcategories of, okay, now I want outside sound and whatever. I'll show you how to kind of do that in a second. I'm going to play this last one, the upper, lower enclosure, upper, lower neighbor tones. Right? They give off a different feel. Each of them does. Yeah, so, all right, somebody just mentioned, Juan just said, plus 30 articulation, nice. Dynamics and phrasing is important. Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing. That's my, once again, that taking the fear out of improvisation masterclass that I did, the live one, I talked all about that. I said notes are not music. Music is everything that you add to notes. Dynamics, articulation, phrasing, motifs, interaction with the band, all those things. This masterclass is not about that specifically. I'm going to have other ones on that and how to use articulation as a tool to get a certain sound. This is just about specifically 2-5-1s. Yes, articulation. I know. Yes, that's the most. It's way more important than notes. That's another day. Okay. Last thing we're gonna do before we get to look at that, alterations. Before we do that, I'm gonna show you some different sounds that you can create diatonically. This is why somebody was saying diatonic is king. Check this out. I'm gonna play linear up and down, linear only, stepwise. Gives a certain sound. Okay, now listen to this. Sorry. So there's a couple clams in there. Buddy Rich would have yelled at me. By the way, I heard, super tangent, because I just mentioned Buddy Rich about yelling. If you don't know, there's this famous, if there's a famous thing where Buddy Rich was like screaming at his band on the bus. And they taped it, and he's like yelling at them. He's like, "I'll fire you all," and like using bad language. I heard through someone who talked to someone who was in the band that it didn't actually go quite like that. Like you heard, actually happened, but there was other things that led up to it, and it wasn't just like people messed up and whatever. There's a whole thing. So I'll get into that. No, I got to ask that person if I can tell the story, because it's like this like never heard of story that led to that specifically. Like the band had something to do with it consciously. So whatever. That's a separate thing. But did you hear that the difference between playing diatonically linear and diatonically with large intervals or bigger intervals is something that's it gives a completely different sound, but I played linear stuff. Within that, if I didn't do a great job of it, because I was just trying to show the interval thing, but if you have great voice leading, you can play large intervals and still have the notes and the chords connected really well. If you've only ever practiced scales and major keys as linear up and down scales, 1 through 8 and back down, you're not going to have the technique and you're not going to have the tools in your toolbox in real time. If you want to say, I want that modern fourths open sound, practice scales in thirds, in fourths, in fifths, and sixths. Practice stacked fourths. Man, I really wish there was like a PDF book out that had all this stuff written out in different exercises in like all major keys. Oh, strictly major. So I joke about that, and it's not all a sales pitch, but it's like, I've used that. The reason why I wrote that book is because I've been using that with my students for years and years and years. Of if you want that modern outside fourths sound, you have to practice playing in that sound. And the best way to do it is take a major key center. In this case, we're doing C major, and play a scale in fourths. Right? Or fifths. Diatonically. Then you can like stack the fourths. Stack the fourths and then move them around. Right? You get all these different sounds and these different shapes, but they're all based on a major key. Why is the major key important? Well, when we're talking about chords and key centers and everything, that you have to know the key center of these chords. If you think of it as a chord phrase, these chords as a phrase and an overall key center, and then think of chord to chord voice leading, you have the overall key, the overall vibe, you have the voice leading between them, and then you create those good melodies with that technique without having to worry about just vertically playing through each chord. That's how lines and melodies are built. But you have to do this process of cooking that chicken first. For those who weren't here before for the chicken analogy, well, just rewind it and then you'll see. Here we go. Let's get back into the book here. So a short 2-5-1. Now we're getting some nitty-gritty stuff. So those of you who just came to hear how to play wacky notes over the 5 chord, get ready. We're about to be there. Short 2-5-1 is C major. To me, when I say short 2-5-1, I mean basically 2 beats of the 2 chord, 2 beats of the 5, and then the 1. So if you're playing in 3-4 or something, it'll be like, I guess, half the measure, so beat and a half each. You know what I mean. Half the length of a long 2-5. So here's why I believe learning short 2-5 vocabulary is infinitely more important than learning long 2-5 vocabulary. Short 2-5s, learning how to play through short 2-5s is way more important and more useful, more beneficial, and more essential than learning long 2-5-1s. Here's why. Whoops. Every 2-5-1, every long 2-5 can be turned into a short 2-5 without the rhythm section doing anything different. Every time, and not every time I play, but most of the times I'm thinking of a long 2-5, I'm thinking this right here on the worksheet. I'm thinking the 2 chord for a measure, just like it's written. And then instead of thinking just of a big G7 for a measure, I'm thinking of D minor for 2 beats, G7 for 2 beats, then resolving. What do I mean? In the measure of the 5 here, this is the 5 chord. Now we're starting to get into it. This is where the motion happens. This is where the extra stuff happens. By the way, if you don't have this worksheet, click the link in the pinned comment in the live thing or the top of the description, davepollack.com/251, put your email address in, bam, you got it. So you can follow along easier and you could jump around. You could write on it, print it out, whatever you want to do. The 5 chord is important to play through, but it's hard for a lot of people, and myself included, to play on a stagnant kind of chord that sits there. Now, if you're playing really fast and you have long, linear, swooping lines, yeah, you might want to just think this. For me, especially when I'm thinking of maybe a slower tempo, or I really want to create some motion. And when I say motion, I mean go through the chords. I'm thinking short 2-5 here. So basically, you still play the 2 chord and lead into it something here, and then you play that there. I'll demonstrate. This is one of the most common short 2-5-1 lines you can ever play. In fact, Jacob Mann from the 1 Minute Jazz Lessons used to use that as he had like a MIDI horns, MIDI sax section, play that over top of when he would say, "Hey everybody, it's 1 Minute Jazz Lessons." He would play it over top. It was hilarious. If you don't know Jacob Mann, go check him out. But that line is basically this. I'm going up the 2 chord and then going down. You know what? I'll write it out right here. Oh, wait a minute. I'll add a measure. Ready for this? Right here, I'm going to add what I just played. So I'm basically going up the 2 chord. So D, F, A, A, C. Then scale down. B, A, G, C. And then I would resolve on C. Okay? So this would be D minor. This would be G7 here. Alrighty. So, check this out. 1, 3, 5, 7 of the 2 chord, and then 7, look, 7 to 3. I always tell you 7 to 3. And then scale down 3, 2, 1, then 7. If you resolve on E, it'd be 7, 3 at the end. So that simple line is super simple. Everybody plays it. It's like one of the first 2-5s. I think that was the first 2-5 line someone showed me back when I was in high school. And I didn't learn much before college in the sense of improvisation, but that's one. So watch this. I'm going to play that here. I'm going to have the backing track play D minor for a bar, G7 for a bar, then C. I'm going to play this here. Listen to how it works. Because even though I'm thinking short 2-5-1 over the long 2-5, it will work well. I'm just telling you it will. Here's what it'll sound like. Get ready. Now I'm going to fill in the first bar. Now I'm going to fill in and alter it. Right? So you can then start somewhere and then take it as far as you want based on a lot of things that we're going to talk about in a second. Turning a long 2-5-1 into a short 2-5-1 is one of the most beneficial things you could do. Here's why also I like it. Getting back to just memorizing lines and having vocabulary over short 2-5-1s, think about it. If I'm memorizing a long 2-5-1, that's 2 in 4/4 anyway. That's 2 full measures. First of all, that's a lot of stuff to memorize. 2 measures of line. So if you're working on 12 keys, that's a lot of stuff to memorize. But also think about this. If I'm using a quote in a speech, a simple quote from someone, and I use a small snippet, I can work around it with my own stuff to make before and after it, to make it fit, to almost make it sound like I'm not even using a quote. I'm talking about like using a quote and not saying I'm using a quote, just kind of slipping it in there. If in my speech, I memorize like 5 sentences from someone else, then go back to speaking like me, people, because of that length of time, they're going to notice that it's different. So the longer, and this comes back to students, or not when I say students, just people memorizing phrases that are long and just inserting them into their solos. If you do that often and you're just kind of playing your own stuff, then inserting this really long phrase and then going back to your own, it's going to be very obvious where it is. But if you can learn how to take small snippets of vocabulary, like maybe just 4 beats, 2, 5, 1, you can and learn how to lead into it, voice leading, get out of it, voice leading. It'll elevate your playing. You'll be able to use pre-rehearsed stuff, maybe that you heard, maybe that you transcribed, maybe it's just stuff that you worked out on your own, that you wrote, that you want to use, and it won't sound as pre-rehearsed because you're kind of combining it with what you're actually improvising in real time. It'll fit more organically. That's basically the goal to me, is to sound organic when I'm playing. Even if I've played some of these lines before, I want to fit them into my playing. The easiest way is smaller snippets. And that's why learning a short 2-5 and applying that over the measure of the 5 chord is so important to me, because you can take that small snippet of a 2-5-1, like I was just doing, and then put it over there. Also, it's much easier to alter and edit yourself with a short 2-5-1 in real time than it is a long one. Okay? When I get into this stuff, when we start talking about all these color tones and outside sounds in a minute here, it's about what are we changing somewhere to create a certain sound and then put it over top. Same thing. If I want to edit, if I want to, think really creatively, it's really important for me, once again, going back to the simplicity of it. If I have simple, smaller snippets, memorized core sounds with good voice leading, in real time, I can edit those simple things easy. If I have this really long, complex line, right? If I take that Charlie Parker line that everybody likes, right? It's going to be hard for me to, how am I going to edit that in real time? I'm not. I'm just going to basically copy and paste it, which could be fine if that's what you're going for. But my goal is always practice, learn sounds from people, whether I'm transcribing a sound. Once again, a sound could be harmony, whatever. Transcribe a sound, work out a sound, and then I want to edit it in real time. So with my students, and this is why, in this, I can talk about this for 100 hours, and I can't go as in-depth as I want to right now, but once again, there's something coming down the pike. Stay tuned. But what I have them do is I say, think of a simple line. If that's our simple line, memorize that in all 12 keys, right? Around the circle of fourths. Oh, by the way, always practice things in fourths, because that's how jazz chords traditionally move. So don't go by the fifths. And I wouldn't go chromatically, because I like to jump around the horn. Go by fourths. How can I edit that and make it sound better? Maybe I can adjust the rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever. There's a million ways you can edit it, but at its core, that's what you're thinking about. two 5-1s, short 2 5s, putting them over the 5 chord will give you that flexibility. Okay. Now, that's a bit scrunched here. Hold on a second. Whoops. Okay. So now let's get into the stuff that a lot of you came here for, which is color over the 5 chord. Everything that we're going to talk about from here on out. So we have alterations on the 5. We have diminished scale. I show you the tritone sub and how to create some other sounds here, right? All of these mean nothing if you don't have page 1 down, right? All of this doesn't mean a single thing unless you have the voice leading there, you're landing on good chord tones, obviously, and then even before that, beyond that, tone quality, intonation, dynamics, motifs, phrasing, all that stuff, obviously. All this stuff is just the sprinkle of the sauce or the seasoning on the chicken, like I said. We talked about, up until this point, cooking the chicken. Now we're going to add the spice and seasoning. If you guys have any questions right now on anything I've talked about up to this point, you can ask them right now before I go further. I don't want to go all the way to the end if a couple of you are chomping the bit to ask a question, so you can ask that right now before we get into all the alterations. Because once again, the alterations are just notes, okay? There's only 12 notes, so I'm going to show you just some common alterations, some cool sounds that I like, some cool ways to approach it. Because once again, it's not just about now everybody approaching the alterations the same way, because then we'd all sound the same. And my goal is always to approach it with efficiency and simplicity, so then I can edit them in real time. So if you have any questions, ask them right now about anything I talked to up to this point, or if you have any questions about how to practice it, or building anything diatonically. Give yourself a second. And give me a second. By the way, this is a good little pause to say Boston Sax Shop, one of my sponsors. If you need reeds, ligatures, mouthpieces, cases, necks, I have their silver neck, the heritage neck. I've been playing it off camera for a little while now. I'm still getting used to it. It's just a little different for me. It does project like great, and it has great resonance. The difference is that the only issue is my horn already plays super bright. I do everything I can to dull the sound down, and this actually helps project more. So it's for the stuff that I do, it sometimes projects a little too much, but it's great. The notes pop out way easier. But you could use code Pollack, Pollack, 10% off your entire order. You buy a case for $400, bam, $40 off. You buy 2 boxes of reeds. I don't even know how much the reeds are. $25 a piece. You buy 2 boxes for $50. You get $5 off. It's a couple cups of coffee. Okay, so we do have a question. Good so far. Thanks, Saunders. Should I know? By the way, thank you for that donation to the Coast to Coast, which I'll talk about a little later too. Should I know all of my scales in fourths? I mean, so the answer is always going to be yes. Because then once you know it in fourths, the question is, should I know it in fifths? Yeah, and sixths, yeah, sevenths, octave. If you want to have mastery of the instrument, whatever instrument you play, and that's the cool thing about this is I'm not doing this just for saxophone players. Most of you are probably saxophone players, but a lot of you might not be. Mastery of your instrument. Hold on, let me talk to you guys here. Mastery of your instrument is not just playing things that you come across every single day. You might never ever play a song that goes bo beep bo beep bo beep bo beep bo beep, right? But that's not the point of practice. The point of practice is to overplay things and work things too much or beyond the point of what you'll do, so that way you have that complete control. So when you are improvising or reading a tune, everything to you is like under your belt. So the answer is yes, you should know all 12 scales and fourths, as long as you already know them linearly and in thirds. So don't just jump to that. Learn them linear, full range. Learn them in thirds, learn them in fourths, then go fifths, sixths, sevenths. There's things like that. Just joining in, do you have any tips on building in and how to practice motifs and themes? So that's a separate idea. So writing out motifs can be good. There's a whole thing I go through, and I don't have time right now, but you can approach motifs in a few ways, but one of the ways is in real time, see how you end a phrase. However you end the phrase, dee-da in a third, and start your next phrase, and you build the end of one phrase, build that as your motif. Even if it's as simple as boo-da-ba-doo-bop, bop, bop, 2 syncopated notes on and, that'll be your motif now. Boo-da-dee-da-dot-dot, bop, 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 beep, bop, beep, bop, bop. That's your motif. So building it off what you did. Another one is having worked out kind of small snippets of either rhythms. I like rhythmic motifs the most. They seem to carry across the best. Thinking of a motif ahead of time, building it into the beginning of your phrases, that's a little more worked out. I can't get into it too much right now, but also writing out motifs, writing out little snippets that you've heard or that you like, and practicing them. Practice a motif. Be-da, practice different intervals. Boo-ba-da-dee-da. Then the idea, but here's the application. When you're practicing, whether it's with a backing track or whatever, put that motif everywhere, in every single measure, in every single phrase, over every chord. It won't be musical. That's fine. I always have this phrase, if you can do it all the time, then you can do it sometimes. So if you know you can play a rhythm motif in every single measure of Cherokee, a 64-bar form, then you know that you can do it sometimes over Cherokee or sometimes over any other tune. So implement whatever motif you wrote or that you got from someone or that you've heard. Implement it all the time, over and over, until you know you can do it over every set of chord changes. The problem is people sometimes get too comfortable in certain chord changes that they play a certain way, rhythmically, harmonically, that they get stuck in that. The best way to do it is to force a simple idea over everything, every tune, all over the place, and then back off and just try to implement it musically. Here we go. Now it's time, the time you've all been waiting for. Maybe, I don't know. Is that we're going to now talk about alterations. Okay? Alterations are that spice, right? Alterations is just that little extra thing. So I'm just going to straight up talk about what these alterations are first and how to create the sound. This is the non-musical side of it. People go, oh, I want to play diminished stuff. I'm going to play flat, whatever, 37. There's nothing musical about playing a flat 9 or something, right? By the way, these are just some of alterations that you can have. Here's the disclaimer. This masterclass, I can't go through every alteration that I use. I can't go through every alteration that's out there. There's only 12 notes, though, so if you think about it, if the 5 chord, the G7, has 4 chord tones, you have, theoretically, what's 12 minus 4? 8. You have 8 options of alterations, right? Technically. And Quinn, if you want to email me, info@davepollack.com, I can expand upon that maybe a little more to help you out, give you more direction to your solo there. Basically, working with small stuff allows you to be more efficiently gain flexibility. So you'd argue that taking small shapes from transcription is generally better than working with long phrases. 100%, Christian, 100 million %. I'm not a big fan of transcribing full solos. If you want to learn a solo or you want to get better at transcription, do it. But if you spend, let's just do an arbitrary number here. If you spend 20 hours transcribing a solo and you get 5 cool lines out of it, that means if you break it down, that's 4 hours per line. If you transcribe just find 5 lines that you like, that might only take you, if it's even an hour per line, that's still 4 times faster, 4 times more efficiency. I'm all about efficiency. I'd rather practice for 1 minute than 10 minutes. That's just how I am. I'd rather get something done. So transcribing smaller phrases is great because you're being more focused. You're not just transcribing some line just because. Once again, if you want to get better at transcription, you want to learn a whole solo, great. If you want to use it to learn how to play over dominant chords, transcribe the dominant chords. If you want to learn it for, I don't know, how to play over minor chord, you know what I mean? So yes, small phrases, and then you're able to learn them quicker, get them under your fingers better, and use them, edit them, alter them in real time, and assimilate them into your regular playing much more organically. Hello, Dave. I just asked, will this video still be on the channel? Yep. So this video is just going to be on my channel like a normal one. A lot of you watching right now are probably watching it not live. In fact, most people are probably watching it after the fact. So hello, thank you. I'm going to put some channel markers in the description so you can kind of click through, because I know I'm doing a lot of talking, about different topics, so you can click right to that topic. Okay, here we go. Alterations. I'm looking at the worksheet again. These are not in any order. They're not in order of difficulty, not in order of importance. I just order of what I kind of thought of. Okay, the first one is the most common one, is a flat 9. And by the way, whenever I teach this stuff, it's not just what it is, it's how to play it. So G7 flat 9, that's probably the most common alteration on a dominant chord, is the flat 9. It literally means you take the ninth, which is the same as the 2, but in jazz we stack them 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. The ninth, which is A, and you flat it, so it becomes A flat. You get this, 1, 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9. Wonderful. That's great. How do you now use it in playing? The best way is, I say, think of the diminished 7 chord that it creates. If you delete the root, delete the G, if you just think of the 5, 7, or 3, 5, 7, 9, 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9, you get concert B, D, F, A. The great thing about a diminished 7 chord, as I wrote here, B slash D slash F slash A flat, it's symmetrical. Right, and the scale is symmetrical as well. So all you need to think about, I'm going to implement this diminished chord over top of G7, superimpose, if you will, over G7. So I'm going to try that now. I'm going back to long 2/5s again, just so you can hear the sound better. Short 2/5s, it'll work, but you won't hear it as well right now. So all I'm going to do, the only chord tones I'm going to play over the G7 is B, D, F, A flat. I'm only going to play 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9. Here's what that sounds like. Now, just playing them vertically, will you get the sound? Sure, you'll get the sound, but you're not going to get that good motion. Think about now all the things we talked about. Think about cooking the chicken. If and this is, once again, one of the ways I approach it. If you're trying to create that color, the color here is that flat 9. So that would be kind of the main note, or at least that's the color note. That's what has the tension. Consonant over the 2 chord, tension over the 5 chord, resolution. Consonant, tension, resolution. CTR. Adam Larson, one of my friends, he's a great saxophone player, great educator. He says it like, think about diving, like diving into a swimming pool in the Olympics. The run-up is like the 2 chord. It's going to be kind of the same every time. The 5 chord is where all the action happens. That's all the flipping, the spinning, right? And then hopefully the landing is controlled. You know, you're not landing on your back or your stomach. You're having a nice, good landing. The more outside you go on the 5 chord, the stronger the resolution needs to be to have it work overall. Now, there's always cases where you want it to be super outside and be disjointed and it doesn't land right or whatever, and you do that on purpose because you want it to feel. This is all about connection. So in this case, it's not super outside, but the flat 9 is a tension note. Think about it. It's a half step from the root. If the root is, we're playing, that's going to have tension, but that's what we want. The best way to, people listen backwards, by the way. This is something that you have to think about. Justification is very important in the ears of the listener. If I just play wrong notes only, right? If I just play wrong notes and then don't resolve it, it's going to be like, was he just playing wrong notes? But if I play wrong notes and have good voice leading outside of it, it's going to work, right? Check this out. I'll just demonstrate with just the flat 9. Right? Now, there are lots of times when you want it to be unresolved. You might want that unresolved sound and let their ears kind of fill in the blank. But, you know, as we get deeper into the outside sounds, that becomes a little trickier. So the flat 9 always resolves down really well to the 5. So in the case of G7 to C major, A flat resolves down a half step to G. You could resolve up to the 7. Okay? You could also, I actually don't know if I wrote this in. Oh, I didn't. So not written on here, I also like to use the sharp 9 with the flat 9. So in this case, it would be A sharp. That resolves down as well. So A sharp, A flat, G. Here's what that would sound. That's part of the diminished scale, which we're going to talk about, but I'll just show it without the diminished scale. Check it out. A sharp and A flat. Those are your key notes for the tension. G is going to be our landing note. Think of those 3 notes. A sharp, A flat, G. Okay. Right, there you go. There's the flat 9 sound, and then also adding in the sharp 9 as well. Triad pairs. We're going to be getting there. We're going to be getting there. Sergey, we're going to be doing the pairing. Don't get there yet. You're jumping ahead. Okay, here we go. So look at the next one. So G. This is probably my favorite alteration. It's G7, really G13, flat 9. I wrote it as G7, flat 9, add 13 because literally I'm not playing the 11th. The 13 same as a 6, so that would be the note E natural. And then the flat 9, like we just did, is A flat. Okay, that's great. I mean, it's fine, but how are you going to use it? Find a triad. If you use the A flat, call it G sharp. That's the flat 9. The 13th, the E. And then you have B, the 3rd. You have an E triad over this. I use this all the time. Here's the sound. It's actually if you're on piano, thinking of an open Bill Evans shell voicing in the right hand, think 3, 5, 7, 9 of the 2 chord. And then just move the middle 2 notes down a half step. So you get F, A flat, B, E. So that's the sound. So it's an E triad. So what does that sound like over top of G7? Here we go. So E triad over G7. So you get the point. I use that sound all the time. I love that sound. And to me, yeah, vertical is cool when it's hip. So yeah, that in that case, because we're playing a triad, it leads itself to be more vertical, but you still have the voice leading out of it. I'm not just going. It's still. There still needs to be voice leading. So think about it. Where are your options of voice leading? G sharp, you can stay there on the 7. B natural. The E natural is the 3rd. That can stay. And then that flat 9, resolve it down as well. So you have your good voice leading. There you go. Build a line on it. The advent of iReal Pro, being able to loop things, you could sit there for 10 hours. And just think of different ways to get in and out of it. Come across one you like, write it down, bam. Then you can expand upon it. I love triads superimposed over chords because think about it like this. There's still only one altered note here. It's just the flat 9, but that sound is so different. That's flat 9. That's flat 9 as well, but it's a different sound. When you superimpose triads or sounds over top of sounds, think about what the sound gives you. It's not just the harmony. It's also the combination of playing that chord. We're a monophonic instrument. We can't play more than one note at a time. For the most part. People do overtones and stuff, don't come at me. But for the most part, we're playing one note. So to make a chord sound, we got to play notes in a row. So it's not just about playing the note E or G sharp or B. It's about playing them consecutively. There you go. Okay, the next one, flat what did I do? Flat 13 and flat 9. Okay, so we're playing. So it's the same kind of deal, but we're playing in E flat concert instead of E natural. The way to think of it, play an A flat minor chord. Yeah, A flat minor chord, because look, the C flat third, A flat, flat 9. We get the color notes here, the important color notes that we're doing. So I'm going to play an A flat minor triad over top of G7. Here's what that will sound like. Once again, vertical for now. So think about our options now for voice leading. The flat 13, E flat, resolves beautifully either up a half step to E, which would be the third of C major, or down a half step to D, which is the 9. I like that more. It gives more color. So I'm going to aim for that. I'm going to aim for E flat to D over the G7 to C. Check it out. All right? And right there, oh, I came across that. Over the 2 chord, I can play E natural, which is the 9. Over the G7, I can play E flat, which is the flat 13. And then over the C major, I can play D. That's the 9. So 9, flat 13, 9. Or, yeah, 9, flat 13, 9. That's a chromatic guide tone line. E, E flat, D. Let's just focus only on that guide tone line. Let's see what I can do. Let's see what I can do. Huh. If you have that guide tone line in your head, thinking about the line, I'm not thinking about it like this, thinking about that line, you have a goal, which, remember, the subconscious is the micro, thinking about the chord tones. Those need to be automatic. So when I play down, that's automatic. All that's D minor concert. And then I think about, now I have my options. Over the G7, then resolve, right? It's there. The most modern out-sounding lines are constructed with triads. Yes. Just like the one I played in. I'm getting to more. Yes. So the idea is implementing these sounds. There's only 12 notes, right? Mozart, Bach, and Justin Bieber use the same 12 notes. I use the same 12 notes that you use, that Michael Brecker used, that John Coltrane used. It's combinations of notes, obviously rhythms, dynamics, phrasing, articulation. We talked about that. These sounds are how you combine them together to create certain sounds. If I say play a flat 9 sound, there's too many options. Just playing that note I showed you is one sound. Playing it with a diminished chord is one. Playing with the triad, playing with the flat 13. Completely different sounds constructed based on chords over chords, which is why I teach these triads. All right. Last one is the Girl from Ipanema bridge. Right. Right. Different key, but you get the point. I'll show you that. So that's going to be using literally sharp 11 and flat 9. So over G7, I could play an E major triad. Kenny, yeah, that's the best. Not best. I love that sound. It's right there. Boom, in the worksheet. That is the best sound. I keep saying best. Maybe it is the best. I love that sound the most. But here's what a D flat major triad, hitting that flat 9, the sharp 11, and the flat 7. D flat major triad over G7. Some people might think of this as a tritone sub. It's not really, but take a listen. Sorry, I played the completely wrong thing. Cool sound, right? Let me make it a little faster to give these sounds a little something. Let's do it at 180. Whoops, not 800. Here we go. So I'm going to go back. I'll do the first sound, diminished 7 off of B. So check it out. Same thing. Next one, E triad. A flat minor. D flat. Oh well. All I did was play those 4 sounds, okay? Obviously, your rhythms matter more than the notes. Obviously, your articulation matters. Obviously, this is about the notes right now, okay? That's what it sounds like. Now, let's move on because we are starting to run out of time. The diminished sound. There are people who are way more into the diminished sound than me. In fact, most people are. I'm not nearly as much into the diminished sound as a lot. But I do value it, and I do like to approach it in certain ways. So just so you know, if you have a G7 chord or you see any dominant chord, the diminished scale you're going to use is either, you could think of it as the root. So if it's G7, G half whole diminished, which means you start with a half step up to A flat, then whole step, whole, half whole, all the way up. Or a lot of people learn diminished scales as whole step first, because the whole step, it's needlessly confusing, but the whole step is what you would use over the root of a diminished chord. So if you see G sharp diminished 7, that's the same scale you'll play over a G7. G7, you can either think of it as G half whole diminished or G sharp whole half diminished. Same notes. Right? So here's how you can use them over a 2-5-1. Let's go back to the long 2-5-1. The reason why I like going descending is for this purpose right here. Look at the first 4 notes of this. This is the diminished scale just going down, right? Look at the first 4 notes. That's diatonic to C major or D minor, however you want to think of it, right? That is diatonic. By the way, sorry for this light right here. I don't have a blackout curtain in the side of my the blinds. That's where the sun sets, so it's right there. I film all my videos at night, so I don't have to deal with the light coming in, but, you know, I'll slide over here maybe a little bit. It's also bothering me. It's probably not bothering you as much. So look at these notes right here. The first 4 are diatonic, and then over the 5 chord, look what happens. This is where all the color happens. You get the sharp 11, the 3rd, there's the sharp 9, flat 9, and then the resolution. Here's what this scale, literally just playing the scale over top of a long 2/5. Here's what it sounds like. I'm going to slow it back down again so you can hear it. Diminished scale descending. Now I'm going to add some little rhythms. The cool thing about the diminished scale is it adds its, even though it's a scale, it adds its own color. It has its own sound, and it sounds pretty hip, even though it's just a scale. So how do you use it? Well, once again, you have to be careful whenever you're using these color sounds. That the more tension you have, the better the resolution should be. So here's a cool little one that I hope you can all see. I have, for those who are colorblind, like my friend Caesar, I apologize. He wouldn't be able to see this, but some of these notes here are in red. So for the honeysuckle rose line, so this is a 3-part. I love this line because it's like 3 layers, 3 things in one. So honeysuckle rose, for anybody who don't know. Right, that's the melody. So people use this as a 2-5-1 or some version of that. I'm also going to show you how you can use that here. So if I just played a short 2-5 to C, it would be what's right there, or some version. So I'm going to put that line real quick over the 5 chord. Just like I said, you can turn the long into the short. Watch this. Check it. Works beautifully, right? If you use it in over the 2 chord, or thinking of it, of the short 2-5 over the 2 chord, and then go a tritone away, in this case down, you're playing the tritone sub of the full 2-5 condensed down into a short 2-5 over the 5 chord. So as it says, I'm thinking of the tritone sub, and we're going to get into tritone subs in a second, but as you get into tritone subs, you're thinking of what is a 2-5 to a tritone away from this? So that'd be F sharp or G flat. So you're going to think A flat minor to D flat. Here's the cool thing about this. I'm going to play this exact line. It's just this phrase, a tritone away and resolves, but notice what the red notes create. Notice what the red notes create. Look at them. I even wrote it there, but see if you can hear it. Hear the top of the red notes. One more time, I'll play it up an octave. Now I'll just play the top notes. That's the diminished scale. It's so cool to me that you can take a motif like the honeysuckle rose line, be-da-doo-dee-da, right? And then turn it into a tritone sub, be-da-doo-dee-da, tritone sub with good resolution, but also you hear on all the downbeats, 1 and 3 and 1 and 3 and 1. It's the diminished scale. So if we think the diminished scale, but add some notes now, check this out. I have to read this one. I forget. So listen to that. That's a little chromatic version of it. If I played that fast, you wouldn't really, you'd be like, oh, it's a chromatic kind of line. Look at it. Every downbeat is the diminished scale. I'm just either adding a chromatic passing tone in between or like a lower neighbor, which makes enclosures. So check it out. Here's what this sounds like slow. Now, if I jack the tempo up. By the way, already, don't comment yet, but start thinking of songs you want me to play, because I want to end in about 15 minutes, 10 minutes, with a tune. I'll just blow a tune. Think right now. Don't comment yet. you're probably hearing a little more delay. I'm not actually sure why that's happening right now. I just heard it in my ears. I'm not quite sure why the delay is happening worse. I apologize. Okay, last thing we're going to get to. And once again, this is only scraping the surface of 251s, but I kind of wanted to start from the beginning. I know we spent the first full hour on, just to recap again, for those who are either here now or here the whole time, by the way, thank you so much. I don't know if I said thank you yet, really, to you guys for hanging out with me and for listening to this stuff and, commenting and just enjoying this, and I hope it helps some of you. Once again, if you have specific questions after this, you can always email me at info@davepollack.com. That works really well. So, but thank you. But, I spent the whole first hour just talking diatonically. I could spend 20 hours on it. But this stuff is all extra. Once you have that together, I'd much rather hear a solo that has no outside notes, all diatonic, but good phrasing, good feel, good sound, good motifs, good voice leading, then just add this extra stuff, okay? Let's talk about the tritone sub for a second. It's a sound that you hear all the time, even if you don't know you hear it. I have a very particular way that I like to go about it. I made a whole video on it, a short video on it, so I'll go into a little more depth right now. At its core, tritone substitution literally means you're substituting a chord for a chord, I think it's delay because your mic interface. Well, but I've been using this the whole time. I don't know why all of a sudden it's worse in my ears. Whatever. You're substituting for a tritone away. The common one, like it says right here, is you play D minor, the 2 chord, and then you substitute the 5 chord for a tritone away, and then the 1. So it ends up being chromatic motion, D to D flat to C. That's great, but here's the problem. Here's how everybody then learns to play over it. They play vertically. Oh my God, I don't want to ever hear that. So there's lots of ways we can approach this. I'm going to show you 2 ways that work really well. One I think works better than the other. Just so you know, you can also substitute out for the 2, in which case you'll substitute A flat minor here. Here's where voice leading really works, guys. If you just play the notes of A flat minor 7 over D minor 7, think about the notes. A flat, so that's going to be the flat 5 of D. So that's already highlighting like a flat 5. Then you're putting B natural, which is the major 6 here. Then E flat, which is the flat 9 here. And then G flat, which is the natural 3rd. These notes are very crunchy. Understand that the more out you go, the more conviction you have to be playing with. You can't just randomly bop around and try to play the notes of this and say, I'm playing a tritone sub. No, you're just playing wrong notes. Okay? If you have good voice leading and play a nice strong 2-5, that's, it'll work, but it has a lot of crunchiness there, right? So here, I'll demonstrate kind of this real quick. I'm going to play the first one, then the second one. Where are we at? Okay. I'll do it at 170. So this is just tritone sub over the 5. Then the second one, I'll play the 2 and the 5. Here we go. Right? So if it leads in there better, if you could lead from chord to chord smooth, it'll work a lot better. Now, but that doesn't teach you how to play over it. I would never teach that to you and say, play those chords. Here's what I would say. You have this option, which is turning the long 2-5 into a short 2-5, just subbing out the 5, or playing the 2 and then playing, I wrote the wrong thing. Oops. Wow. So this should say A flat minor 7. So whoever already downloaded this, A flat minor 7. Whoever already downloaded this, I apologize. The chord, it's written right, but I wrote the chord name wrong. So you're basically playing D minor for bar, then the short 2-5 tritone sub. So check out what that sounds like. Here we go. One more time. With really your feature in that A flat minor. Now, how to actually solo over it. What am I going to think? Well, instead of thinking B flat 7, which when people just play thirds, it sounds kind of corny. Play the D flat major pentatonic. It's still vertical, but I like it. So I'm going to do that over the entire G7. There it is. All right. So that's that. It's okay. Here's much better. I love to think, if you want the tritone sub sound, I always like to teach you the behind and then the why, and then I teach you what I actually do. Here's when I actually think of a tritone sub, here's what I really teach, and here's what I really play. B major 7 over G7. What? Here's why. If you think of the tritone sub, you have the 2 chord is A flat minor and then this. A lot of times in 2/5s, I didn't even talk about this yet, but you can delete the 5 chord. Just think about the 2. The 2 chord is A flat minor. Let's call it G sharp minor. If you play all the color notes, think of the relative major. I always like turning things into major. Think of G sharp major or G sharp minor or A flat minor. The third 5, 7, 9, you get the notes B, D sharp, F sharp, A sharp. I always like to just categorize things. So thinking of just 4 random notes is hard for me. If I say, oh, it's a B major 7 chord, because I know my B major 7 chord really well, bam, play B major 7 that resolves to C. Here's all you have to think of. If you're resolving to C major, play the major 7 chord a half step below. That sounds weird, but it'll give you the tritone sound. Then, also, if you want to think, here's the last thing I wrote on here. If you want to make both things major, think of the 2 chord as the relative major as well. Think of F major. So what you end up getting is, instead of D minor to G, you get F major, B major, C major. Now, one caveat. Whenever you think of alterations of chords over chords, the fact that we're thinking B major 7 over G is the alteration. Don't then alter the B major. Don't say, oh, well, with B major, I'm going to add a sharp 11. No. The B major itself. Think of it like a piano player. They're playing a G7 on left hand, adding a B major over top. That's going to create the color that we're looking for. And it'll give us the sound. So check it out. I'm going to play F major over the D minor. Then I'm going to play B major over the G7. And we should get a nice tritone sound. Check it out. Here's a lick. Once again, I apologize. Even my voice is super delayed now. I don't know if my computer's like about to die or something. I mean, it's die as in like explode, not run out of battery. So I apologize for that because it was working pretty good up until there. All right, so I want to end in like 5 minutes. Questions? I know I gave a lot, I hope. And I know we talked about a lot today, but do you have any questions overarching, even stuff that I didn't maybe touch on? And also put a tune suggestion. Put a tune suggestion in. Put a tune suggestion in, please. Boop beep boop beep boop beep boop boop beep boop beep boop beep boop. Hold on 1 second, guys. Tune suggestions. All right. Let's see what we have here. Let me go back to just me? Hey, I'm back. um, all right, questions real quick. Complete bar, sorry, the French on top. Thank you for this. I would like you to play Corcovado. Great tune. Wildflower, Yardbird, Swearing. Repair? No, not at all. So there's lots of things. What I've learned about in my life in getting older is like, in the way I like to approach things, there's certain things I don't want to know about because I'll obsess about them. Like I'll be on forums about them. Repair is one of those things. I don't even want to know. If it's broke, I'm bringing it to my repair guy, who's the only person who's ever touched my horns ever my entire life. John Ashcraft, local here in central New Jersey. I bring in him. No, I don't want to know about repair. I don't want to know. Me channel theme. Have members Jones, Cherokee, GGG. If I'm learning a transcription, do I need to memorize the changes for the tune I'm learning? I would say yes, because it gives you the context of what they're playing and why they're playing it. Because then you can really analyze, oh, I like that sound here. Well, why do you like it? And this is I can do another masterclass on just transcription. I might want to get Patrick Bartley on for that one. But for me, transcription is about using the transcription as a tool. It's not just learning it, but it's about why does that line sound cool? And I fell into this trap when I was younger because nobody taught me this. I would just memorize a line and just use it randomly in places. That doesn't make sense. Why does it sound cool? Is it the harmony? Is it the rhythms? Is it the like what about it is cool? And usually the people that learn the harmony behind it, you can then implement it to your own playing. Oh, all he's doing is using that triad there. Like I stole this line from Dick Oates. By the way, I'm still trying to find where this line is. I don't know where it is. I thought it was in Like Someone in Love, but it's not. That's the first time I heard that. Or not the first time I heard it, but the first time I really thought about it, playing an A on alto or a concert, B major triad, going to C major. So that phrase right there is kind of cool. But I learned how to use it. All right. Something, Dave, your sound, your lessons and skill. I love that. Oh, thank you. I love the whole major concept for tritone stuff. Yeah, I love thinking major. Why make things harder? Efficiency. If I can turn every chord into major, I only need to know 12 harmonic concepts, right? Why would I have to learn sharp 11, flat 9, flat 13, sharp if I can just go, oh, I'll just play B major 7. That gives you all of it. Because I also think like a piano player. I'm thinking of how can I put a chord over a chord to create a new sound? I'm not thinking of each individual note, and it goes back to the vertical thing. Can you pick any note from your 2 and walk that down by going major, diminished, and landing on something that resolves? Major, diminished. Are you talking about changing the chords? You mean like going like D minor, C sharp, diminished? I'm not sure what you're asking there, Jack. Have you ever had a bad teacher and how'd you deal with it? That's a whole nother topic for another day. Any chance you could do a similar masterclass on how to look at and feel rhythms? Absolutely, because rhythms to me are so important. Having reference recordings in your mind, hearing rhythms that work with the band and work with the style is super important. Yes, I'm going to do that. Hold on one second. Oops, where are we at? There we go. What are your thoughts on melodic and harmonic minor modes and how important they are? That's a whole nother, I can't just give a quick answer on that. I mean, just like anything else, it's another tool to be used. I don't think they're as, and let me just say this from my own experience, they're not as important to everyday improvisation as major. So if you don't have your major modes and major stuff locked in, I wouldn't start approaching harmonic minor modes or anything. But especially when you start talking about playing over different minor sounds, absolutely, they're super important. And I think it's really important to have that in your bag as well. So yes, it's important, but I can't get into it right now. Britney Spears, Toxic. That's a great song. How do you decide on the difference between blues and funk solos? Whatever fits the current style. Or how do you decide on different? What are you asking, Zachary? Like, what's up, Igor? What do you mean like if I'm playing like a bluesy funk tune, like how do I decide how I should play? Or you just, I don't know, ask again. Will you do anything else than strictly major? You mean like as a PDF book? Yeah, I'm going to do something else in the, well, for like a PDF book, yes, but that's not going to be probably till next year sometime. I'm doing something big that I've been working on hours and hours and hours for the last few months. A teaching thing that's big. That's going to be later this year. Stay tuned for that. That it's going to go in depth in all the things that I can't do in live streams here. And it's going to have so many resources. That's going to be awesome. Does smooth jazz only use pentatonics? Actually, no. But I made the joke that it did. For my original series, when I was playing a character making fun of smooth jazz, even though people thought it was me making fun of smooth jazz. Note-wise, style-wise, and notes. So Zach, so you're saying, like, how do you, like, well, I mean, they share a lot of the same things. You can make a funk solo using only the blues scale. You can make blues solos using, it's all, I think it's all about the rhythms and the groove is the difference. Blues, to me, if you're talking blues like B.B. King blues, that's going to be a different deal. But bluesy and funk, it's just going to be what the band's playing, what the groove is. That's going to be more kind of what's there. Oh, Dave. Oh, Wave. Play Wave. Currently, who's your biggest influence for your sax sound, specifically tone? Dick Oates. Still Dick Oates. It has been for a long time. He's my biggest influence on that. But it's a combination. I think the way I hear him play is what I hear mostly, but it's a combination of him and like the Kenny Garrett type sound. That's why I play a little more of that modern-ish play, where Dick Oates is more the more mellow with the pop articulation and linear bebop lines. I kind of combine that with that more heavier Kenny Garrett type sound. So those two are my main, but mainly Dick Oates. Very poorly worded question. Sorry. If you're in C major, you play 2-5-1. Can you play an F major 7 over D minor? Yes. And then walk that F major 7 chord down by playing F major 7 diminished. F major 7 diminished. I don't know what you mean by that. Then resolving on E. Wait, you would walk F major down to what? Walk it down to F? Then resolve on E. The question still eludes me. Maybe I'm just stupid. Walk F major down by playing F major diminished and then resolving on E. You mean F major then playing F diminished? Like F A flat, C flat, E double flat? I don't know. Sorry. Do you tend to approach 2-5s that don't resolve to? Yeah. So that's a whole nother thing that I don't have time to get into today. 2-5s that don't resolve. Basically, the super quick overview is when I see a 2-5-1, for example, if it's a backdoor 2-5-1 like bars 3 and 4, Ladybird, or just a 2-5 that just goes somewhere else, non-resolving, I take the 2-5 and I approach it as if it's going to the 1, and then at the very end of the 5 chord, I do voice leading into notes that work over the next chord. Remember, if I do a 2-5 D minor to G7, the resolving chord is usually C major, C, E, G, B. If the chord we resolve to is not C major, you still only have 8 other notes to choose from. Some of them are either going to be the same as these 4, or they're going to be close. So if normally I would resolve to, just say I would resolve a tritone away, all 4 notes, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E sharp. Instead of resolving down to the 3rd of E, I would switch that, maybe resolve to E sharp, which would be the 7th of F sharp major. I still lead as if I'm going to the original wherever it would normally resolve, and then I just do good voice leading and guide tone lines that lead me to the new chord. Okay, so you did say F diminished. Yeah, so that's literally what I talked about in here. Hold on. So, Jack, check it out. Dude, look at this. Right here. Back when we were talking about alterations, look right in this measure. To get the flat 9 sound, you can play any of these diminished chords. Remember, B diminished, D diminished, F diminished, and A flat diminished are all the same. So it gives you that sound. It's just however you want to approach it. So if you have that finger pattern, remember, it's all symmetrical. So yeah, you can think F major. It's just then about finding so there we go. We got to the question, we got to the answer. Yes, you can think F major, which is the relative major of D minor, then play F diminished, which is the same as A flat diminished, same as B diminished, same as however you want to think of it. That's the harmonic color. Then you resolve to whatever you want. Okay. Let me get back to here. Awesome. How do you structure your practice sessions today compared to back when you were first starting out? Great question. Not a great answer. How many hours? Well, hold on. Let me go back up. I skipped a few. How to play tunes with easy harmony like Chameleon that don't make it sound boring. Yeah, so that's all going to be about creating motifs, creating melodies, and creating motion. Okay? So that is going to be I don't have time to talk about that now, but that is definitely something that is I'm going to lean back. I've been sitting up this whole time. That is definitely something that's super important. How to create motion, how to create good melodies that aren't boring. Like, the funny thing is when people see a tune like Chameleon or like even like So What, they're like, oh, there's only 2 chords. It's so easy. But you're the one who has to be creative in creating motion, right? A song like Giant Steps, for as much as it has now become a meme, which kind of pisses me off, even though I fed into it like really big. I can't be mad. I'm mad at myself, if anything. But a tune like Giant Steps, if you just hit the chord changes with good voice leading, your solo will be good. Because the chords create that motion, right? They're creating the complexity. They're creating the sound. You don't have to worry about creating that roadmap. It's already there. In a tune like So What, you have to create the roadmap. So there's different challenges like that, or Chameleon or something like that. So yes, I can't get into it now, but that's going to be something else I talk about later. How many hours a day you spend daily with sax, and how does you structure your practice now? Dave, saxologist. Dave, my main man. I enjoy your videos and dig your playing. Thank you so much. Same name, brother. So what I'm about to say, don't take this this is a definitely do as I say, not as I do moment. I don't want to lie and be like, yeah, I'm on the horn like 8 hours a day. Basically, it's going to sound ridiculous. And there's reasons why I'm not going to go into everything, but the only time I touch my horn now is either when I'm playing a gig, doing a recording, teaching a lesson, or I need to practice something very specific for a recording or a gig. I can't remember the last time I just sat down and practiced saxophone. Legitimately. So don't use that as what you should do. Don't use that as what everybody should do. Don't use that as what is best. It probably not even best for me for saxophone playing, but it's the best thing for me in general. I had a gig with Chris Williams' big band, and there was some pretty tricky sax solo stuff. We had a rehearsal up in the city. He sent out the charts ahead of time. I'm always that person who's super prepared. I'm there early. I got a pencil, got my stand. I already printed out my music, even though he had to print it out. I wrote in the music because there was some tricky stuff. I learned all the hard parts ahead of time, listened to the recordings, learned the parts. Bam, I'm ready at rehearsal. So rehearsal is rehearsal. So rehearsal doesn't turn into practice. That's a good tip for all of you in a band. Don't make rehearsal practice. Rehearsal's for rehearsing, putting together parts that you already know. It's not about learning the parts. So I don't spend time on the horn really. Outside of playing a gig, doing a recording, or teaching a lesson. Take that for what you want. So when you ask how do I structure my practice session, the only practice I do is if I'm learning something specific. Like, hey, we're playing a gig tomorrow night, and we're doing these specific tunes, and we're not having sheets. You have to memorize the tunes. Okay, I'll memorize the tunes. That's a practice session. I'm not sitting here going, okay, I'm going to start with long tones today, and then I'm going to play my scales. I just don't do that. Would I be a better saxophone player if I did? Yeah, most likely. But that's not what I do. I have my reasons. Okay. How do you practice putting silence in your solos? Do you mean you practice not to take all the place? Yeah, the best way to do that is to play a cappella and fill in as a drummer. My biggest thing when I solo is interacting with the drummer, if there's a drummer in the band. So pretend you're the drummer. Watch this. I'll play and I'll make the sounds. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ba 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 da. Ba do da. Sorry, I'm choking. Be the drummer. interact with yourself as a drummer, even if you're just singing it or smacking the keys or something. I do that a lot. Boo ba doo do ba doo do right? That gives you that space, and it teaches you how to say something and interact. Now, obviously, if you're the one interacting, you know what you're playing, so you can anticipate it instantly, and a drummer's not going to catch everything. But if you think of it more as a conversation, and remember, a solo is only a solo if you're the only person playing. If you're playing with a quartet and there's a rhythm section playing, you might be soloing out in front and improvising. You're not, I mean, I guess you can be called a soloist. You're basically the melody leader. Joe Schmidt. Yo! Guys, Joseph Schmidt is in the chat. So he's been on some of my videos. Dude, what's up, man? I got to come down there. We got to hang. I got to see little Tony. So Joe has been on my channel. You can search my name and Joe Schmidt. He's a great tenor player. You want to talk about someone who doesn't practice but still sounds great. Oh, my God. This dude might have the same read on for 3 years because he only played it twice and then just rips through like any tune. It's amazing. Yo, Joe. But yeah, I did play a lot in college. Yeah, so yeah, that's once again why I'm saying take this with a grain of salt. What I do now is not what I did in college 15 years ago. Yeah, so there's that. Is the blues scale basically the same as diminished, and can you substitute them? No, I wouldn't say that. The blues scale is very specific with the flat third, with the skips and stuff in it. I know what you're saying. Like some of the notes are the same, but they're not. It's not. Don't equate those two things together. The blues scale is a completely separate deal. In general, how would you approach playing outside on a minor 2-5-1? Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing. Now, minors, you shouldn't go as outside because the idea of a minor 2-5-1 is it's an altered major 2-5-1. It's a specifically altered with that flat 5 over the 2 chord and flat 9. It's got its specific alteration, so that's why the harmonic minor sound is usually best. If you start going too far out, I mean, you could do it, and it's the same kind of process, but the sounds aren't going to be as authentically It's a whole different thing. I can't get into that today. Can you play a 2-5-1 and resolve with 5-4-2? Huh? Steven, I don't understand your question. Can you resolve? What do you mean resolve with 5? Like the chord tone, like the notes 5-4 or the chords 5-4-2? I don't know. Years ago, how many hours were you playing a day in high school, college? Oh, Hugh Davis. What up, Hugh? What's going on? I mean, I think you can answer that about high school, Hugh. But a bunch of hours a day. 3 hours a day, maybe, probably. Back in high school. In college, probably more. What was your practice schedule like? I don't know what the schedule, but I just played at night. I just played for a few hours. I did play in college a lot. Hey, it's Kevin. Yeah, Hugh. That's brother Kevin, Joe. Sorry, I'm just catching up. You guys are like talking to each other, and I'm just catching up to it now. Sorry. I can only imagine the energy you and Dom have in person when playing together. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of energy. By the way, I guess I can announce a couple gigs, like far off. I mean, I have a bunch before this too, but I'm playing in Philly. I'm doing a Cannonball Coltrane kind of deal with Ryan Devlin in October. More details to come. Hey, I've never got this tip. Thanks. Late to the party. Hope very late. If you're in the family, peep the VOD. Yeah, Joe Lewis. What's up, man? All right, I'm going to play a tune and then get out of here, guys. We've been on for 2 hours and 11 minutes, so I thank you all. So I'm going to play... wait a minute. Let me scroll back up. There are a couple tunes people were suggesting. Somebody said a blues. That's always good, but nah. What about... Somebody said Cherokee. Oh, God. I'm going to do Softly's in the Morning Sunrise. Let's do that. Actually, I might be able to get a better track for that as well. Because I have the J Metcalf tracks, I think, somewhere. No, I do not. I thought I did. Oh, well. Here we go. So I hope it lines up, guys. If it doesn't, once again, I apologize. But I'm going to do Softly for a couple of reasons. Or actually, you know what? We've been talking about 2/5s. Maybe I should do a tune with more major 2/5 Cherokee again. Oh, fine, I'll do Cherokee. God, I'm not great at this tune. Joe Schmidt is, though. Let's do it at 240, not too fast. Do you guys want it in the original key, or do you want it like up a half step? Like Vincent Herring called me out one time. He's like, yeah, it's cool. You can do it in B flat. How about up a half step? So do you want B or B flat? Black Scholars? Yeah, Joe. Oh, man. I would need a chart for that and a track. There is a delay. That's the... See, I'm not... Oh, actually, it's not as bad as it was. Original key. You got it. All right, here we go. See how many, when I solo, how many of the sounds I talked about you hear. Maybe comment when you hear them. There's one. So I played a lot of notes there, too many, probably, but it is what it is. So I'm glad you guys are digging it. Kirk, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm heading out now anyway. Heard the quote. Yeah, I played it a few times, so I tried to throw some of those in there. The only downside to doing this, though, is that now that I've showed you guys these specific ways that I think about it, every time I post a video now of me playing, you're going to comment like, ooh, I heard that line. I heard that triad. Here's the triad again. When you start pulling back the curtain and you see how the sausage is made, or go inside baseball here, use a couple different analogies, you start to realize like, oh, yeah, it's like I've heard those sounds before, but now they're quantifiable. You know what they are. So it's pretty cool, I think, because then you learn like what they are, and it demystifies them a bit. It's not just like, wow, there's that cool line, there's that wild outside line. It's, oh, this is a very specific alteration that he's using here. And even if you were to, hopefully this masterclass has taught you that if you go transcribe someone and you hear a sound, you can quantify it over top of these chords, right? Especially if it's harmony. Oh, he played these notes. Why does it work? You can go back to this and go, oh, he's using part of the diminished scale. He's using part of that triad, part of this, part of whatever. So it creates a connection between what you're hearing and what you can do with it. So to wrap things up here, thank you all once again for hanging out, sticking and listening. If you haven't downloaded the PDF to go along with this, it just has all the things I was talking through. Please do so, davepollack.com/251. It's in the pinned comment here in the live chat. It's also the top of the description of the video. If you're watching this afterwards and you didn't download it yet, just go to the description. I'll pin the comment as a regular comment as well. All you have to do is put your email in. And then also, once you're on that email list, I say weekly content. I'm going to start being a little more regular, but I'm going to be sending separate things just to the email list, email people. So if you give your email in, that does not ever go on YouTube. Like, I actually have something already written that I'm going to be sending out probably early next week that is only to the email list. I'm not going to make a mention of it anywhere publicly. It's going to be, hey, thanks for being on my email list and being a fan and being a subscriber, follower, whatever you want to call it. Here's a free PDF, or here's an extra video that's only for you guys, that's not anywhere else. So that's why that email list is important, because it's a direct line from me to you. Me just posting on YouTube or something is out into the void, but I know the people that I can connect with through the email list is really important. So make sure you download that if you haven't yet, and you can also get the free masterclass on melodic soloing using only your email as well. It doesn't cost anything. Boston Sax Shop, 10% off using code Pollack, Pollack, as always. That'd be cool if anytime you use those codes and I know about it. It's awesome. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. You're very welcome, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions about it, info@davepollack.com. You can email me, and I'll hopefully be able to get to it. And I'll be able to get to it. Just how quickly, depending on how many I get. Hit the nail on the head. Awesome ending. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much once again. And as a final sign off, if you're watching this live or you're watching this sometime in 2022 in the summer, my wife is doing a big charity bike ride coast to coast. I'm going to put the link to that. Actually, I'll get the link to that in a second for you. So check it out, because wait a minute. Hold on one second. I'm going to get you guys this link in the chat. So this isn't, you don't have to do anything, but her page, she's going to be biking like 225 miles in 3 days, or 250, something insane. In the end of September, she's raising money for cancer research. She is a cancer researcher, but she's also raising money specifically through the V Foundation. If you wouldn't mind checking it out or sharing it around, I know not everybody can afford it, obviously. That's totally fine. Just sharing it, putting some eyes in front of it is also great. And it's not like she's a bike rider either. She's just been training recently for this, so it's pretty crazy. So there's that. Check it out. And just while I have your attention on that. Thank you guys so much again. I'm going to be heading out. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you get the PDF and have fun practicing your 2-5-1s. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You can send them. Thank you so much again. I will see you guys in the next video, and be on the lookout for more live stream masterclasses just like this one. Be sure to share this link around too if you think other people would enjoy this class. Thanks again. Appreciate it. Have a great one.